On today's episode of Locked On Wild, breaking news on the injury front. As just announced, Matt Boldy is week to week with a lower body injury. We'll talk about how this impacts the Wild on both sides of the puck on today's episode.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day. We thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we react to the breaking news that Matt Boldy is week to week with a lower body injury, and we'll talk about who could potentially step in to fill that spot if he's not able to get back into the lineup by the time the season starts, as well as what this means for the Wild offense. And if that means maybe a little more Jacob Loco, because turns out that dude can fly. We'll talk about that as well here today. My name is Seth Toupal, credentialed Wild media member and host of the show since 2021, and joined by Alex Micheletti here today. And Alex, sometimes this is why we wait until recording on actual Monday, because some pretty big news that just dropped. Matt Boldy is week to week, according to the team, with a lower body injury. He did not practice today, and Michael Russo tipped this off earlier today by saying that there was no Boldy at practice earlier. And so your mind just goes through like the normal thread of like, okay, routine maintenance day, banged up. No, this is a short list of players that you can't really afford to lose. Now, obviously, Kirill, Joel Eriksson, probably Brock Faber on the top of the list for this Minnesota Wild team. But this is going to be a big season for Matt Boldy, and this is just the absolute last thing you want to have happen to get it started.
Yeah, the ominous when there was when it said no Boldy at practice, I just right away I was like, oh, this is not good. And now that we know that it's lower body too, that's worse, I think, than upper body, because it can affect his skating. Anything lower body that is going to affect how he can skate, and so that can prolong an absence. So it does not sound good. And we only have a couple weeks here till opening night, so that is scary, especially with the second line and all the troubles they had last season. It's you can't make it up.
So let's glass half full this.
Yes.
Because I'm gonna play both sides of this argument very intentionally, because the fact that this happened in the preseason, we are right now, it's the 23rd. You have the rest of this week, all of next week, and up until the 10th before the first game of the season. So you got about 2.5 weeks before the first game starts. And this gives you an opportunity through the rest of the preseason, because we pretty much knew what we were going to get with Matt, and not that preseason reps are important, but this gives you an opportunity now to get Liam Ohgren, to get Riley Heidt, to get
Travis Boyd,
to get guys. This gives you an opportunity for John Hines to, as he said he's going to do all preseason, get looks at guys that could potentially step in to that role. We know the roster is going to be tight. If Boldy ends up going on injured reserve to start the season, it's likely that you are going to it's likely that you're going to go to one of those guys to fill that spot on the roster.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. But it just, it causes chaos with the lines now again here. Who do you put on that second line? I mean, and do you keep Hartman still there on the top line, or do you shift them back and put Ek on the top line to create a super line? What's really troubling about this too, if he does start the season on IR, I mean, you're on the road a ton, and so you're not you're not getting the advantage of last change either. And so I mean, for strategy with the lines too, it throws a huge wrench in everything.
So let's look at the contenders. So let's talk about Riley Heidt a little bit, because we know the situation with him. All the lead up to this moment was that he was going to be given every indication or every opportunity to make the roster. And if he put himself in position to do that, Bill Guerin was going to make a tough choice. Like that was the narrative leading up to this point.
Right.
Now, I think, depending on the severity, I think a 9-game look for Riley Heidt is very legitimately on the table right now.
It has to be. And, the good thing about that is if he does struggle, you have a Travis Boyd, you have a Devin Shore that has played in the NHL and can take that spot if needed for longer than the 9 there, or if it's shorter than the 9, like if he really struggles, you have those guys in Iowa, if they do get sent down to Iowa, that can come up right away.
I think the other guy that this really gives an opportunity to, because you just look at how the lines have looked. Liam Ohgren is a guy who's been very vocal about, like, I'm going to make the team. I'm going to make this roster. Well, now, in addition to going into the Boldy injury saying the second line has one spot that is like open season, now there are 2 if Matt Boldy misses games. Because I don't want this.
And Ohgren was kind of skating like on a 5th line, it almost seemed like, it not even in, which was like, that gives you what's going on there. But
concerning.
Yeah, like you said, he can really move up with if there is openings.
I would like the situation to be handled as such. I don't want this to I hope I explain this correctly. I don't want this to mean, well, because Boldy's out, Johansson is guaranteed a spot on that second line. I feel like it needs to be, okay, you guys are going to have to really go for what you guys are going to really have to fight for your spots. And here's another situation. Here's another scenario to think about. You have Marco Rossi looking like he's going to be more of a second or third line center, but John Hines has said he's going to get opportunities in the top 6 too. Maybe now you go Ek line 1, Rossi and Hartman line 2, to maybe, just because Ryan Hartman may not ultimately be a guy that you are looking at in your top 6, but he does shoot. He does shoot the puck, and that is something that's one potential way that you replicate what Matt Boldy brings to the table. But another thing that the Wild need to do in monitoring this injury situation is look at the players that can best replicate the things that Matt Boldy brings to the table, which is shooting, goal scoring, but also on the defensive side too. Like, his defense has improved over the last couple of seasons to where he can contribute on that side of the puck too.
Yeah, and with how much trouble the defense that had last season, especially in penalty kill too, they're going to need all the help they can get to. And the unknown is the goaltending going to get any better too, which is one of their Achilles heels.
Well, let's continue this conversation by taking a look just at now what this means for the offense. Obviously, if you're just joining us, the Minnesota Wild announcing today that Matt Boldy is week to week with a lower body injury. And so we will continue to analyze the fallout as well as taking a look at how the Wild mitigate this over the next couple of weeks. All that as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. There are 2 Monday Night Football games tonight, and so if you are somebody who has Joe Burrow on your fantasy team like I do, maybe you are optimistic that he can go over on his current passing yardage numbers. So in that case, you just pick the over. Passing touchdowns, maybe that's an over too. I don't know. I need the points in fantasy, so I'm hoping I'm manifesting a good game for Joe Burrow here this evening. It's that simple. You just pick a couple of players and pick whether you think they will go high or low in particular stat categories. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. That's Prize Picks. Run your game. Today's episode of Locked on Wild also brought to you by Indeed. We are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Plus, listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. We will have a live show for you tonight at 8 p.m. with more reaction to the big news of the day that Matt Boldy is going to be week to week with a lower body injury. So make sure to tune in tonight at 8 on YouTube for that and reaction to the first preseason game of the year. We'll have a little bit on that coming up to finish the show today, but obviously, Alex, the big news of the day, Matt Boldy week to week with a lower body injury. And if we kind of shift this discussion to the offense in general, this is a tough blow if it means games lost in the regular season, because other than Kirill, Kaprizov, Eriksson, Matt Boldy is probably your third most important piece offensively on this team.
Yeah, he's probably, right on the power play too is his bread and butter, and that's killer. When we always talk about special teams being so important, and that's who you try to get the puck to on the power play. Obviously Kirill, but Boldy's shot, it's just. It is so frustrating, especially when you're expecting this guy to push close to 40 goals probably this season. So that's a huge chunk if that's missing, and you're on the road, and it's so hard to score on the road in this league. So there's going to be some adversity again. It goes from last year from losing your captain and the most important defenseman on the team to now one of the in 2024 2025 you're probably your third most important forward, maybe second, especially for scoring wise. Yeah, it's just like, oh man, here we go.
Do have an update from Michael Russo. John Heidt says it's not considered a major injury for Boldy, and he should be back by the end of camp, and they're anticipating ready by the opener. Heidt said Boldy didn't really know something was up significantly until he got home, practiced Saturday, did media, and worked out. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to do anything from a speculation point other than, for me, that sounds like a KNEE, because what do we know about knees is you often can feel fine and then all of a sudden
JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
Next day is out for the year. Not saying Boldy's out for the year, but yeah, just like you mentioned. But the scary thing too is you just don't want that to linger too. So
yes,
don't come back too early and then overcompensate.
Yeah, that's the worry. And again, I'm not a doctor, right, but anytime it's an injury that you don't notice right away, oftentimes that's just a swelling type situation.
Right,
so
right.
We'll see, but the point still applies. This is going to allow an opportunity to get more guys mixed in to the bottom six. I'll reemphasize what we said at the top of the show. I think this means that Marco Rossi, plays a majority of the season or preseason as a top six guy, but John Heidt has said they're going to mix and match a bunch during the preseason. And so hopefully that just means more reps for some potential options if that second line becomes an issue again this year.
Yeah, you have they don't have you mentioned Marcus Johansson shouldn't just be handed a spot. Same goes with Freddie Gaudreau. I know we talk about those two all the time, but even if you're a veteran in this league, if you're coming off a poor season, you shouldn't just be handed guaranteed ice time. You should be fighting for that spot. It's just when you miss the playoffs, everything should be up for grabs. I think.
Especially considering that big looming thing that we know is out there that I'm not going to acknowledge by name, because we'll spend plenty of time talking about that after this coming season is done. Mm-hmm. And so just gonna push that off to the side. On the offensive front, we talked about the top end guys. There are plenty of players that you're just looking for more from this season. And so I wanted to kind of highlight some of those guys as well. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be a big year for Matt Zuccarello, because you look at the production down the stretch last season. I think Russo highlighted it and said it was 2 goals and five total points in 5-on-5 play from the time that Kirill went to the Boldy and Eriksson line to the end of the season, that's not great. And so if it means that Kirill is going to be his line mate, at least to start the season, he is one of those guys that just shoot the puck a little more, and get those numbers up, and then that will be less that the team has to worry about from an offensive standpoint in that top six.
The problem with him, when you're scouting Matt Zuccarello, he just refuses to shoot the puck, and so you know what he's going to be doing. He just does not want to shoot the puck for I don't know what that reason is. Hopefully they can get him in a mindset to shoot more, because I mean it's pretty easy to defend him if all he's going to do is pass. And and he's starting to get slower as he gets older, and so he's got to do more out there if you're in the top line role. If they want to make the playoffs, he's got to try to shoot the puck more.
Yeah, and the other two guys, like you said, we talk about them a lot, but this is the hope, is that when Bill Guerin said that at the end of last season, said, these veteran guys, as long as they pull their weight, they're fine. If not, they're going to have people that are looking over their shoulders, knocking the door down. And so seasons from Marcus Johansson and Freddie Gaudreau that are similar to what happened last year, that's not going to cut it. No. That is not going to be enough for this team. And as a result, that should mean that then those spots are fully up for grabs.
Yeah, 100%. Especially if he gets a second power play, spot. You should be producing if you're in that role. And 1-0 shots, every 3-4 games is not going to cut it. They need production from those top two lines. It just every other team in the division is going to have it, so they need to step up.
Yeah, and I get that not everybody is a huge goal scorer, but
Right.
the thing that frustrates me is just not really contributing really at all. Like if you're not somebody that's going to shoot, then set up the guys that are.
Mhm.
But when you have so many games out of an 82 game season that are just like
Duds,
water,
Duds,
empty calories, no substance,
like
then
when it's
a
not a
problem.
back-to-back and you're still playing like it's a back-to-back, that's a bad look.
So I will say, and we'll kind of do this over the next few weeks, is just looking at each unit for the Minnesota Wild, and if they have improved heading into the season. I think there's potential for the offense to improve,
Mhm.
provided that players pull their weights. If they don't, provided that then some of these guys that are probably better offensively as it is, get the opportunities. That's where then you could see this offense take a little bit of a bump. But
another guy that is so important to this team and is the vibes guy is Marcus Foligno. I mean, he's shown when he's the grief line when his line is effective, they take over and they just wear out the other opponents, and it helps all the other lines. And so he has to have a huge year for this team. And he brings now they have Trennan, but I mean he's one of the few forwards that is plays a physical game, and but he's got to take it to where he's not injuring himself. It seems like he ends up having these lingering injuries that just wear him down before we even get to the end of the year. So he's just got to toe the line on that. But he's so important to this team because he brings a different element than a lot of the forwards.
Yeah, and this is like an NFL team bringing in a second running back to try to take some of that wear and tear off of your primary guy.
Trennan's the goal line back.
Yeah, Trennan is, and that's funny too, because I think Russo did a write up too about what the lines could look like, and talked about how I think a lot of people are hoping that we see a Foligno, Hartman, Trennan line, because good luck playing against that thing. Like it's gonna be like Paul Bunyan skating around the ice with a 2x4, just hitting everybody as hard as he can. I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, if you're the opponent on the ice, you're good luck. You're gonna need an ice pack. Yeah, just refuse to go on the ice against that trio if that's the case.
Yeah, hard pass. And then you got the guys in the fourth line, and what perfect timing it was to do the Jacob Loco profile on Friday, because it turns out that dude can fly. And so we will talk about Jacob Loco to reinforce what we talked about on Friday's show. For the everydayers, you are standing and applauding right now because you know exactly what I mean. We'll talk about what he can bring to the table as we finish today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the huddle right in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. If you throw in a $5 bet, doesn't have to be a winner. It can be, you can throw down on the New York Giants to come away with the win. If they don't, you'll get a $200 bonus in bonus bets guaranteed. All you have to do is place your first $5 bet. So head to fanduel.com, take advantage of this offer today. Get yourself ready. The NHL season will be here soon, and America's #1 sportsbook can help make your NHL season a profitable one. One final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure, as mentioned, to join us for tonight's live show at 8 p.m., breaking down all of the latest from Saturday's preseason opener, which was a win for your Minnesota Wilds, and also the news today, which, again, I will reiterate what John Hynes said regarding Matt Boldy. The Wild announcing that Boldy will be week to week with a lower body injury. Hynes reinforcing that, saying it's not considered a major injury for Boldy and that he should be back by the end of camp. They're anticipating ready by the opener. Hynes says Boldy didn't really know something was up significantly until he got home. He practiced Saturday, did media, and worked out. So we'll see what that means. I do know one thing for sure. We called him Brandon Duhaime 2.0 on Friday. Jacob Loco is fast. Like, unreal, the speed that he brings to the table. He scored on a breakaway goal against the Jets. And
on Capo,
yeah,
who just got shelled.
5 goals allowed for Capo Kakinen.
After watching that, Connor, they're going to say, Connor Hellebuck, you were playing 60, 70 games.
We're going to need 75 type from you.
Why would they, after they saw him in San Jose, why would they say, yep, this is who we want backing up our Vezina, goalie? I feel
like a lot of teams look at those types of goalies and they say, well, he was playing behind really no defensive structure, and we have defensive structure here, so we can work the magic and turn this reclamation project into what Laurent Brossoit brought to the table.
Yeah, we'll see about that. I just, he seems cooked, but we'll see.
Go to San Jose for 2 years, and that tends to cook a lot of people.
Right.
But no, it's going to be interesting because, as I talked about, and the everydayers got a chance to hear my whole reasoning behind this. I feel like he is more than capable of bringing a lot of the same things to the table that Brandon Duhaime did. Boston is just such a deep team. Yeah. Like, he probably just didn't have the same level of opportunities that Duhaime did here, because Boston is just, they're so deep at forward, so there really are no spots on the penalty kill that aren't already full, and it's a tried and true fourth line role, but your top 9 is so good that you don't need that fourth line as much. And so I'm really interested to see, because Locked On Wild tends to be pro fourth line over the tenure of the show. It's amazing. It's been Nico Sturm, Brandon Duhaime, and now it appears that we're going Jacob Loco as the favorite player of the team. Although,
and this guy, if you look at his Twitter timeline, for Locked On fans, go check it out if you're on X. He's one of the biggest Lord of the Rings fans you'll ever see. He's always, finding funny memes or posts about Lord of the Rings. He got hit in the face in 2023, and he tweeted a picture of an orc from Lord of the Rings, saying he woke up looking beautiful after getting hit in the face. And there's another picture of his eye just swollen shut. So that he's an all-time character. I can't wait for the quotes to come out when he's asked about games, if he's in the lineup, and he just seems like an all vibes type of guy too. So it's brings something to the locker room that is definitely needed for sure. That speed as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he tries to get into a prank war with Marc-Andre Fleury, because
good luck.
I don't know if I'd go barking up that tree.
No, we saw what Brandon Duhaime had to deal with, and I know he's Brandon and those guys are friends, but it seemed like he was not happy about that.
I wouldn't be either if I had all the tires taken off my truck after I left the team to go to Colorado. But that's what you get. That's what you get for being in the league for 20 plus seasons is you get those
Amazing,
connections.
Right?
You can just I bet he probably has a go-to on almost every team in the league to where he could just give them a call and say, hey, this player pranked me. I need to get him back. And they're like, understood.
Yeah, well, it's just amazing. Someone had a picture on X of the headshots from when he was a rookie to his last one this year. It's amazing. The guy looks exactly the same.
Yeah,
when he was 18. It's a testament to how good of shape he stays in, and if at that age for gold, I mean, we see some forwards that play plus 40. Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, but to do it as a goalie, it's rare. It's just completely rare to see it. And, it's pretty cool that he gets to finish his career with the Wild of all teams. So
yeah, it is one of those things too. Like I have to tell myself this periodically, and it's happened with other Minnesota teams. Is you get these players that are like best of the best.
Mm-hmm.
They may not be at their best personally, but getting a chance to see a Hall of Fame goalie, like he's going to walk into the Hall of Fame first ballot first year, easy.
Yeah.
Getting a chance to see those guys and say they were part of the teams that you covered is pretty darn cool. Like I said, he's clearly on the back stages of his career, but it's still Marc-Andre Fleury, and he's still one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty cool that and you just think how long of a career he's had. The game has changed so much. And, it's he's been through so much, and multi cup winning. It's just I'm glad he was able to to win multiple cups. When I think of Marc-Andre Fleury, you see over the weekend too that Jaromir Jagr is still going. It's this is going to be his last season, but to go past 50, it's incredible. I was just looking up Marc-Andre's just his career, and we talked about in previous episodes with the passing of Johnny Gaudreau and just who all he played with in his career. And, he assisted on Jaromir Jagr's last goal in the NHL. Well, you take a look at Marc-Andre's first season with the Penguins, a legend was still playing. Just take a guess on who you think it might have been.
You have stumped me. That's a great question.
Mario Lemieux, his first season, he was still playing in the NHL. John Leclerc was on the team. Zygmunt Palffy. I mean, some Mark Recchi, Sergei Gonchar. That guy was absolutely incredible on the
unbelievable.
I mean, so some of these guys, it's amazing. That's how long his career has been in the NHL.
Jeez,
you think of all the just all the players, and Marc-Andre's got to be up there with the most former teammates played in the league for sure.
Oh yeah, that would not surprise me in the slightest. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll keep an eye out on the Matt Boldy news again, week to week with a lower body injury, but from what John Hines said, it does not appear to be serious.
When you throw up the week to week, that's where it's just like
they used that with 6 guys last year, and half of them never came back.
Right. So that we can be optimistic about it, but it just until we hear the open night roster, we'll keep an eye on it for sure.
Yeah, it has me nervous. It's going to give a good opportunity to get extended looks at guys that could fill that spot if needed. But you're right on that. Until we get to the opening night roster, I'm still going to be but we'll see. And Locked On Wild will keep you up to date.
Only Minnesota sports, we go from Sam Darnold having an MRI to being it's just a bruise. He's gonna be okay. To the Matt Boldy knows, it's just like it just it's one thing or the other.
Just another day. Just another day in Minnesota sports. But we'll see. Thanks to everybody for tuning in to today's episode. Again, we'll see you tonight at 8 for the live show. And make sure as well, if you haven't entered already, to get your entries into the Locked On Wild sweepstakes. Just show us proof that you are subscribed on YouTube and email that to lockedonwild@gmail.com. We'll be taking submissions for another week, and then we'll be getting our winner drawn for 2 tickets for opening night. So make sure to get your entries in so you don't miss out on that. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Locked On Wild has you covered every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.